Prabhasanta.
Start.
My pranams to all Atma Jyotis, divine light of the self. Today, the topic which we are taking up is called surrender. Let us contemplate on the meaning of surrender. Surrender is called, in Sanskrit, it's called Sharanagati. What is Sharanagati? What is surrender? This is what we think today. This is what we contemplate today. I remember a story. A man had gone for mountaineering. He goes on top of a mountain. There is a heavy snowfall, and he falls into a cliff. It's already late in the night, late in the evening. There's darkness all around. Somehow he managed to hold on to one tree branch and hang. He is hanging, holding on to the tree branch, and the whole night he is praying to God. Oh God, save me. First he asks, God, are you there? Then answer comes, yes, I am there. Please save me. Then the voice comes, just release your hand, release the tree. This man says, please give me some other suggestion. Okay. I can't leave this branch. Oh God, save me. Whole night he kept on praying for saving. Next day morning, many people, other mountaineers, they see a man holding on to a branch of a tree, hanging to the branch of the tree and frozen to death, just 2 feet away from the ground. We pray to God to surrender. We say, I surrender to God. We pray to God. But do we listen? Our prayers are our communication to God. But when God says something, do we listen? Surrender is listening to the God, listening to existence, living our life in total surrender to existence. What is this surrender means? We have seen in military and war, the surrender taking place. The enemy soldiers come and hold a gun. Then people lift their hand, I surrender. Our picture of surrender is lifting my hand and saying, giving up and surrendering. Is that surrender? Giving up in a given situation, is it surrender? The real meaning of surrender in spirituality is not giving up in a given situation. The surrender is a totally internal activity. What happens in your mind, not about external action. Surrender is not means not doing something or giving up some action. Surrender means accepting the mental condition, mental situation. I have a friend of mine who was going through a lot of business challenges. He was going through a lot of difficulties in life. Business had come to almost a stage of collapse. He came to me one day and he said, I'm relaxed now. I have surrendered my business to God. God will take care. Is surrender means inaction? Is surrender means running away from situation? What exactly is surrender? Surrender, does it mean becoming free from a given situation or improving a situation? Somebody whom I know was going through a lot of challenges in the health related challenges. The person says, I have surrendered to God. I hope my health will improve. The surrendering, is it expectation of change in the situation? Is it expectation that situation will become favorable to you? Surrender means, does it mean that giving up your activities and running away from situation? On the contrary, the surrender means effective action. It's not running away from situation. In a given situation, how do I do very effective action? Surrender is not running away from situation. Surrender is not asking for change of situation. Who is surrendering? For whom you are surrendering? Surrender doesn't mean that a situation, environment has to change. Surrender is not saving you from a situation. Surrender is saving you from yourself. The trouble for us is not the external situation. The trouble for us is the mental situation, the internal situation. You are surrendering to save yourself from you, not from a situation. Our ego is the cause of the trouble for us. When there is an unfavorable situation in the world, external situation, there's tremendous amount of fear, anxiety, noise, stress generated within the mind. Who causes this? The ego. And who is you? Ego? You. So when there is a lot of clutter in the mind, the fear, anxiety, stress in the mind, you cannot act effectively in the world. The surrender means surrendering the ego, not surrendering your action, not asking for change of situation. Surrendering the ego so that you can take effective action. What is ego? Ego is a self-identity. It identifies the myself, which is real self, with the body. Ego is a thought. Ego is the mind. Ego can survive only in the past or in the future. Ego cannot survive in the present moment, because ego is a product of my past memory. Ego is the one which will project the future. So I did this. I had such and such a. I got such and such a prize. I failed so many times. All this, your self identity or memory, your regrets, your failures, is what makes your personality. And what is your hope? What is your fear? Makes your future personality. Ego can live only in the past and future. The moment any situation happens in the present moment, the ego triggers. Ego cannot accept anything, any change in the status quo. Ego refuses to have this change in the status quo, because the present moment is not acceptable to ego. And ego always comes out with the strategies from the past to try to avoid the present moment. The ego always tries to change the situation. Ego always tries to avoid the present situation, which is unpleasant, uncomfortable. Ego prays to God, please change the situation. Ego resists the present moment. Ego tries to jump from the present to future, and it avoids the unpleasantness in the present moment. Ego has a lot of strategies which are there for the past to take care of the present, how to avoid the present. But what ego cannot understand and does not understand is the nature is dynamic. Everything in the world is in a state of continuous change. Every moment is a new moment. What worked in the past cannot work in the present. Your strategies of past can be total failure in the present. The ego doesn't know how to handle a new situation which arises moment to moment. The nature of life, the life is dynamic. It is a continuous change. The change is the only constant in life. The only thing which ego wants is no change. Ego doesn't want change. And nature is constantly changing. So what is the effect? You are fighting against the nature, constantly resisting nature. That's what his ego is about. And once you resist the nature, you cannot win. Then suddenly, lot of stress, lot of anxiety, fear develops within you. The surrender is not asking for a change in the external circumstance. External circumstance will be what they will be. Surrender means changing your internal circumstance so that your mind becomes silent and you are able to handle the external circumstance effectively. That's exactly means the meaning of surrender. I have heard the story of a priest. A priest was in church. He has a total belief in God. He has complete faith in God. He says, I have lived my life surrendered to God. One day, when he was conducting the sermon, there is a flood. And people started running. The priest says, I have faith in God. God will take care. The flood starts submerging the church. The priest gets on top of the second floor of the church and says, I have faith in God. Oh God, I have surrendered to you. Please take care of me. Some people say, please come. We are running away. We have a boat. Please come. The priest says, God will come and save me. God will take care of me. I have faith in God. I have surrendered to God. Then a rescue mission comes. They're trying to come on a boat and save the priest by throwing a rope. Hold the rope and come. We'll pull you. The priest says, the God will take care of me. After some time, the priest gets drowned in the flood and he dies. And he goes to God. He stands in front of God. Oh God, I had such a total faith in you. I had surrendered to you, my love, surrendered to you. Why did you save me? God said, I tried to save you. In the form of people, I called you. Please come. You didn't. I came in the form of rescue mission and gave a rope to you and asked you to come. You didn't come. The ego has certain ideas about a situation, certain ideas about a God, certain ideas of how life should be. It doesn't accept any changes. The God has to be like this only, and God can only save me because I have surrendered. The God coming in human form is not acceptable to the ego. The ego has a prefixed notion. It lives in the past. It lives in a social identity. It lives in religious identity. It is holding on to identity. What requires the surrender is for saving you from your ego. Surrender is not changing the situation of life. Ego knows only constant fight. What is ego? Ego defines this is me. I am the body. I am so and so. I am a doctor. I am an engineer. I am husband of someone. Ego starts putting a boundary and says, this is my boundary. This is my territory. This is what I am. And because you put a territory, boundary, there's a constant fear. Because some violation of the boundary can happen. Something can happen to you. And ego always constantly wants to expand the boundary, increase. It wants to add me, add more and more and more to increase the boundary. Add something, add a vehicle, add power, add some relationships. So that ego wants to expand by adding, accumulating. And ego is under constant fear. I will lose some of these. What will happen to me if I lose this? My identity is getting threatened. When you put a boundary for yourself, you are separating yourself from the existence, some nature. And you say, I am separate from nature, and always you are trying to conquer nature, the fight against nature. The life is a struggle and resistance against nature. Do you want to spend whole of your life fighting against? Do you want to fight whole of your life in a struggle, war with the totality? And when you start struggling with the totality, there is stress in the life. And that stress is unbearable. Surrender is to save you from the stress which you are creating for yourself. What we don't understand, what ego cannot understand, is this entire thing is a totality. It's one whole. The totality is functioning. I'm a part and parcel of totality. Whatever boundary I put is artificial. A wave cannot say, this is my boundary, I'm separate from ocean. That boundary is artificial. Ego puts an artificial boundary and tries to protect that boundary. But the totality functioning is very different. Anything can happen in the totality. And whatever happens in the totality, you are also subject to that. At a physical level, changes can take place. It's called Adi Bhautik. There can be floods. There can be rains. There can be earthquakes. There can be Adi Daivik, unforeseen forces of nature can operate. There can be disease. There can be job loss. And all these situations are frightening for the ego, threatening for the ego. Whatever is happening in the totality of the world, it's not individual action, it is a totality functioning. Somewhere the virus attack is there, the virus attack can come to your city, you can get affected. Ego is afraid of the situation. Even though ego has put a boundary and started separation, isolation, in reality, we are a part of the totality and totality is functioning. What happens in a given minute, at a given second, given present moment, is not in our control. Because the totality is functioning. At any given minute, because the totality is functioning, anything can happen and we are faced with a situation moment to moment. It can change. Today, it can be a very, very comfortable day. Tomorrow, always suddenly there can be heavy rains. The totality functioning we cannot control. But the changes in nature is not acceptable to ego because ego wants status quo. Ego wants to maintain its comfortable position. Adi Bhautik, at the physical level change can happen. Adi Daivik, the forces of nature, unseen force of nature can be disease, disorder, war can happen. Adhyatmic means there can be disease for the body, trouble in the mind, disturbs the mind. Ego wants to have a control over the situation. Ego doesn't want to lose the control of the situation. What we have to understand in the process of surrender is that there are certain things we can control and change. There are many things which you can't control and change. We can change our mind and make our mind silent so that we can act effectively. We cannot run away from situation also. Surrender is the process by which I make my mind silent rather than agitated. When you are faced with a new circumstance in life, there are only two responses to life: act or react. Reaction comes from the past. It can be anger, it can be fear, it can be crying, it can be emotional disturbance. The reactions can come. Or an action can come. Action is conscious. Surrender takes you from reaction to action. Surrender takes you from unconsciousness to consciousness. No matter what you do, you cannot run away from a given situation. You can only act instead of reaction. You can act consciously instead of unconscious reactions. So surrender is that. But most of the people understand surrender in a very wrong way. The surrender by the ego and surrender of the ego. You have to understand the difference. Surrender by the ego is a strategy. Surrender of the ego is what real surrender is. Surrender by the ego, we are we do every time. What we do? When the power is there, somebody powerful comes, we surrender. When the boss comes, yes sir, surrender. It's a strategy of the ego to survive. Husband surrenders in front of wife to make it gender neutral. I can say wife surrender in front of husband also. It is a surrender in front of the power. It's a strategy of the ego to survive. I'll surrender now. Somewhere I'll gain a master strategy. I'll gain power again. This is surrender by the ego. Surrender by the ego is done by out of fear. If you don't surrender in front of the power, something will happen to you. Okay. Surrender by the ego is out of desire. Yeah, now it's okay. Let me see what can I do after some situation, after the situation changes. But when we speak of spiritual surrender in spirituality, it is not surrender by the ego, surrender of the ego, which is very different. Surrender by the ego and surrender of the ego. We should understand the difference. When you surrender, when the surrender of the ego takes place, then higher consciousness, the self Atma takes over, the real master comes into picture. Ego is the servant. Ego is the servant of the self Atma, the higher self, the consciousness. But ego was behaving, I am the master. Okay, ego has a lot of studies of surrender. When ego surrenders to the master, which is self, Atma, that is called surrender. Surrender of ego to God is called surrender. It is not surrender by the ego, a surrender of the ego. What is the difference? Ego says, I am surrendering to you, God. It's surrender by the ego. God, I have a difficult situation in life. Okay. Can you please correct this? Can you please change this? You are asking for a change in the situation, change in the circumstance, see, make the situation favorable to you. Now, by the process of surrendering, ego is surrendering now, it's surrendered by the ego. You are asking the God to become your servant. Oh God, my daughter has not studied well for the exam. Please make sure that she gets 95% marks. So now God has to come and write the exam. So you are asking God to change the circumstance. You actually surrender by the ego is a way of asking God to become your servant. Actually, when a wife surrenders to husband, actually she becomes the boss. When husband surrenders to wife, he is the boss. Surrender by the ego is only a strategy to survive. When you surrender to your boss, you are waiting for your time to get more power. The surrender by ego is not we are speaking of. We are speaking of the surrender of the ego. What is surrender of the ego? I remember a story. Today is Hanuman Jayanti. Hanuman is not known as a great devotee. The surrender of Hanuman to Sri Ram is total. Somebody asks Hanumanji, Hanuman, what is Sri Ram to you? Hanumanji says, when when I am conscious of my body, Sri Ram is my master. I engage in the service of Sri Rama. I engage in dharmic activities which are dharmic, as a service to God, Rama. I am a servant. I am not affected by whatever result comes. The result of action is not mine. I am only capable of doing effective action. The result is given by Rama. I am not affected by whatever result comes. My master Rama knows what is right. My job is only to do, act. This is an attitude of karma yoga. Action without attachment to the results when we are body conscious. This is surrender. What you are surrendering here? Your attachment to the result, you are surrendering. Because there can be a favorable result or unfavorable result. We cannot constantly worrying whether the result has to be favorable only. It's not possible. That's why Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. I can act effectively, but result is depend on n number of factors. The result is depend on the totality of the environment, which I can't control. Then whatever result comes, I'll accept it very peacefully and take next action. This is called surrendering in action. That's called karma yoga. This is the first level of understanding of Hanuman. So Hanuman says, when I am body conscious, I am the servant, Rama is the master. So we have to live like that. We have to live like servant of God. We have to engage in dharmic activities without getting attached to results of action. We have to act, not reacting to the result. Action oriented life, not reaction oriented life. Results may be good or bad. Result may be positive or negative. So this is called first level, the body consciousness. Then Hanuman says, when I meditate, I am feeling very related to Rama, very connected to Rama. Rama is my relative. So this is called bhakti yoga or upasana. Now in upasana, you are giving emotional reactions. In karma yoga, you are giving attachment to the fruits of action. In bhakti yoga, you are dropping emotions attached to your life. What are the emotions attached to my life? Kama, krodha, mada, matsara, moha, lobha. Okay? Kama means I have a desire. Krodha means I have anger. Why? Because I feel myself limited. I am separated from the totality. The totality is God. The totality of existence is God. Totality of existence is Ishvara. When I develop love and connectedness with the totality, I am serving the totality. I am not doing any selfish activity. I develop love for God. That means I develop the love for the totality of existence, which is God. I am closer to God. And in that love, all emotions will drop. When there is love, there is no other emotion. Kama, krodha, mada, matsara, moha, lobha, all emotional disturbance will drop when there is love, pure love. All emotional disturbance is because of the lack of love. When there is love, there is no emotional disturbance. The love is the underlying reality. Why there is kama? Why there is desire? I desire something because I want that, because that gives me happiness. Why I happiness? Because I love happiness. Love and happiness is my nature. That's why I desire something. So deep inside, there's a lack of love. Why there is lack of love? Lack of love is lack of feeling of connectedness. Connectedness with what? Connectedness with totality. The connectedness with totality is called God. Hanuman says, when I meditate, I feel connected to Rama. And my heart is filled with love. This is called Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is surrender of what? Emotions. Emotion can be surrendered only through love. Attachment can be surrendered through action, unattached action. So then Hanuman says, I enter into samadhi, a deep state of meditation. Then I am not there. Rama alone is there. This is where you have come to a stage of surrender of the ego. Surrender by the ego will not take you far. Surrender of the ego brings deep peace. And the surrender of the ego is by dropping the ignorance. Now the third stage will come. First you start with karma yoga, where you are dropping the attachment to the action, results of action. Then you come to bhakti yoga, where you are dropping attachment to the you are dropping the emotional reactions. Now you are dropping the ignorance. Ignorance is I am separate from the existence. And this ignorance dropping can happen when you surrender to the guru, the master. Surrendering to guru or master is not surrendering to a person. Tadviddi pranipatena pariprashnena parisevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tadviddi pranipatena, surrender to a master, realized master. Pariprashnena, ask questions. Upadekshanti te jnanam, and do service. Upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninam tattvadarshinaha. The realized master will give you the wisdom. This is the only way you can surrender, by dropping the ignorance. Dropping the ignorance is the highest form of surrender. There is a story of a Zen master, a professor of philosophy, is well-known professor of philosophy in Japanese university. He comes to a Zen master. Zen master is a realized person, realized master. He lives in a small hut. The professor comes and says, I have a lot of questions about philosophy. I heard that you are a wise man, you can answer. The Zen master says, yeah, let us have some tea first. Then let me see whether I can answer your question. The Zen master starts pouring tea into the glass. The glass is full and tea is overflowing. The professor of philosophy says, your glass is full, please stop. The Zen master says, your glass is full. You are already full of knowledge. You cannot accept any more wisdom. For accepting wisdom, you have to become empty of knowledge. When you come to a master, realized master, you have to come dropping your preconceived notions, beliefs, and expectations. You have to become an empty cup. Now, if you are a full cup, how can you receive anything from the master? You are trying to add something to what you have already. It doesn't work. Surrendering your knowledge, surrendering your what you think you know, is what is required. That is the final surrender. Surrender to get the ignorance. What is ignorance? Ignorance is I know about something and I don't know something else. I know about myself. I know about in science. I know engineering. I don't know about philosophy. I know something. I don't know something. Is ignorance. What I don't know about myself, I may know some 10,000 subjects on the earth, but about myself I don't know. And I am coming to the master to learn about myself. My knowledge, my understanding of myself is zero. I am surrendering to the master. Is the attitude which you should have. This is the final surrender. First two surrender are to God. Surrender, Karma Yoga is surrender to God. Bhakti Yoga is surrender to God. Jnana Yoga or final surrender of ignorance is to the master. That's I always said that Ishvaro Guru Atmeti. The realization happens first. People try to start surrender to Ishvara or God. Then finally Ishvara comes in the form of Guru. Then Atmeti, then you surrender your ego. Then you recognize yourself as Guru and Ishvara. Atma is recognized as Guru and Ishvara. The first level of surrender happens to God. Second level of surrender happens to, the final surrender happens to Guru, the wisdom. So this is surrender. Now, when you say surrender to God, surrender to totality or surrender to a given situation also means same thing. What is that? Life always happens in the present moment. It cannot happen in the past or in the future. Always the present moment. Life is a continuous flow. A river cannot stop. A river stops, it stagnates. When the river stops, it stagnates. When the life stops, it's death. The life is a continuous movement of the totality. And the movement means changes. Every moment there is a change. There's a change in the body, there's a change in the mind, there's a change in the world, there's a change in the circumstance, there's a change everywhere. The change is the only constant in life. But what is not changing is the ego. Ego is holding on. Ego doesn't want to change. Ego wants to hold on to its position. You are resisting change. Life is always in the present moment. What happens in life at a given present moment, you cannot reject, because the present moment, it happens. Now, why it happens? What happens today for you, you cannot change. You can call it as destiny. What is destiny? It's my past karma. It has brought this change to me, you can say. Or it can say it's God's will, inshallah. But what happens to you in the present moment is unchangeable. The present moment, the circumstances which is presented to you, you cannot change. You can give various names to that. It's because of my karma, prarabdha karma. It can be because of God's will. It can be anything. I mean, when the change of circumstances, it can be job, loss of job. It can be loss of money. It can be accident, or it can be health. It can be anything. Okay. What is the first thing we do? What is the first thing we do when change happens in life? Why me? Why me? The me is coming to picture first. Ask, why me? God, why me? I have done puja for you so many years. Why me? See, I am a good man. Why me? So there are so many people who are bad people. They are enjoying life. Why me? So this question is asked. Right? Or we start blaming somebody else. Because of this person or because of this situation, I'm here. I mean, I'm getting troubled. This person is responsible. Either you blame somebody or you start, what do you call it, feeling pity on yourself. Why me? Blame that person. Blame the situation. Blame or pity is the first reaction to life. But this will not take you anywhere. Buddha says a person is going through a forest and he shot a hunter there was a hunter who was shooting an arrow. By mistake, this person is hit by arrow. A situation has happened, nothing can be done. He is hit by arrow. The present moment, there's an arrow in his body. Now, what should be his reaction? First reaction is, why me? Why me? Why me is the reaction. Or, where is that hunter? Okay, I should kill him. Is that the reaction you should have? Or, where is this arrow manufactured? Which company has manufactured this arrow? All these questions are irrelevant. These are the questions which are created by the ego. What is the best action in a given circumstance? To find a doctor is the response. Everything else is a reaction. Most of the people keep spending time on pitying themselves, blaming themselves. Why did I come to the forest? Or blaming the hunter, or trying to find the manufacturing date and manufacturer of the arrow. We are trying to find fault with the situation, fault with myself, pity myself, or blame somebody. This is the reaction of the ego. If we understand life, this reaction will stop. The nature of life is change, constant change. If constant change is there, change will happen to me also. First thing is acceptance. What does acceptance means? Acceptance means change can happen anytime to anybody. You can say it is because of God's will, inshallah, God's will, or it can be prarabdha karma, but change can happen to me at any point of time. I cannot keep finding why the change happened, which karma brought the change here. It's like finding the manufacturer of the arrow. You can't do that. The circumstances come. You have to accept life as it happens. Don't react. Don't go into self-pity. Don't start blaming. Don't start fight with the situation. I have to change the situation. I have to change in this circumstance. The change has happened. I have to change. So the moment you accept, the mind calms down. Mind becomes calm. Accept means, okay, something is bound to happen. It is happening. It's the nature of life to change, and the change has happened. I accept it. The moment you reject change, there is a turmoil in the mind. The nature of ego is rejection. The ego is always offering resistance to life. Ego's nature is fight with life. Ego is resistance to life. I don't want change. The moment you say accept, the ego becomes silent. Ego doesn't know acceptance. Ego says only no to life. Ego doesn't know yes to life. You know, many people, many bosses are there. The moment you take something to them, they say no. Because the moment you say no, you feel more powerful. The more egoistic a person, he knows how to say no more times. Please, can you do this? No. This is good. No. Because no makes you more powerful. Rejection makes you more powerful. You feel more powerful. The yes makes, oh yes, the moment you say yes to life, yes to somebody, you feel you have become weak. What you are not understanding is yes to life means you are yielding to life. You are not fighting against the current of life. You are swimming with life. There is a disease for the body. Okay. Yes, there's a disease for the body. Accept it. If you say, why me? Then you are in trouble. There's a disease in the body. Then what next to do? Then you are swimming with life. You are not fighting against life. Accept life. accept life doesn't mean that you become inactive. The accept life means don't react. Accept life means become peaceful. That is called surrender. Surrender is not passivity. Surrender is not running away from life. Surrender is not running away from external action. Surrender is totally internal activity where you make the mind silent. People think surrender means doing external. They surrender, I'm surrendering to my enemy, lifting my hand. That's external. That is done by the ego. It's a strategy. This is surrender of the ego. It's not surrender by the ego. It's not surrender of the ego. Surrender of the ego makes you peaceful and releases you for further action instead of reaction. Action will flow out of you rather than reaction. And inaction is not surrender. So the moment you surrender, accept life. Ego doesn't know how to say yes. Ego knows how to say no. The moment you say yes, this is what can happen, it can happen. Why me? All those things you stop. Then mind becomes silent. When the mind becomes silent, the real boss, the Atma, the self, comes into picture. The mind is a tiny little thing. The ego is a tiny little thing. The higher intelligence of the self, Atma, comes into picture. The real boss, the Sakshi, the witness. This is higher order intelligence compared to your tiny little ego. Now, the action will flow spontaneously, but you are not the doer of action. You are the witness of the action. The doer of the action is ego. Ego thinks I am doing. The real consciousness, the presence of the consciousness, the right action will come. And what is this right action? Ego cannot think. Ego doesn't understand what is right action because ego always thinks only in the past and future. There was a Zen master, and people came to the Zen master, said, Master, your brother has become very wicked. Brother is harassing people. Many people are coming to you, Zen master, to take advice. Why don't you go and advise your brother? Zen master goes to the brother and he sees the wicked ways of the brother. The brother is also threatening the Zen master. He is shouting at Zen master. Zen master doesn't react. Tears start flowing through the Zen master, out from the eyes of the Zen master, out of compassion for the brother. Seeing the tears of the brother, Zen master, the brother is transformed. What 100 words cannot do, what teachings cannot do, just a few tears. For that situation, the tears is the right response, and the right response comes from the consciousness, not from the reactions of the mind. Mind can have strategies. What is the right response for a given situation can arise from the consciousness rather than a programmed reaction from the ego. The surrender means surrendering to a higher wisdom, higher intelligence called the self. In that higher intelligence, something can happen. What can happen? I don't know. Okay, you are open, you are vulnerable. But your strategies of ego is gone. And that openness and vulnerability, something beautiful happens for your upliftment. So this is called surrender. When you are vulnerable, then the totality of existence will operate through you. You are not an individual. It is said that there are two paths for human life. Spiritual path. Path of the monkey and path of the cat. Markata and Marjala. The baby of the monkey has to hold the mother when the mother jumps from tree to tree. The responsibility is with the baby. Marjala, the cat, catches hold of the baby and takes it. The responsibility is with the mother. The surrender means surrendering to totality of existence, surrendering to inner wisdom, intelligence, the higher self, the surrender of the ego. Then you are under the protection of the totality of existence, God. That's called Marjala Marga. Whereas ego knows only Markata Marga, it's a monkey. It is trying to do everything it can do. And ego also surrenders. It's called surrender by the ego. Marjala Marga is surrender of the ego. Surrender means not fighting with life. Surrender is yielding to life. Yielding to life doesn't mean that ineffectiveness or not doing anything or resisting life. It is effective action, not reaction. Action coming out of consciousness. A life free from resistance is called surrender. Now, what happens in surrender? What really happens in surrender? Ego can only see problems in life. Ego can only see threat. Ego has only perception of threat. Opportunity, of course. Right? Now, the one who's when the circumstance in life changes, ego sees there's a problem. There is no problem in life, there's only events in life. The problem is a labeling by the ego. When I go out in the out, it starts raining. It's a very bad day, I say. Can the day be bad? Day is a day. Raining is the nature of the day. The bad is my labeling. The ego knows only two labels in life, bad and good, favorable, unfavorable. Events in life are labeled by the ego. So that means the moment you label the event as good or bad, you have become a part of the problem. Ego has become a part of the problem. Already you have labeled the event as bad. Then mind starts all strategies to overcome the bad. When you don't take the event as neutral, I mean, the event can be anything. It can help a health problem. Oh, a bad thing has happened to me. The moment you say bad, you already neutral. You have come to, you have labeled the situation as bad. Just say there is a health problem. It's neither good or bad. It's a situation to be handled. There's no labeling. The moment you label, you have become a part of the problem. The moment you become part of the problem, you cannot have a solution for the problem. For any problem to happen, any solution for any problem, you should rise above the problem. The witness or the sakshi or myself is above the problem. Sakshi is non-judgmental. It sees any situation non-judgmental way. There's no judgment in the sakshi, the witness. Learn to become the witness. Learn to recognize that you are the witness. And that, then what will happen? The appropriate action will happen. This action is disinterested action. That means you are not getting attached to the results of the action. In the process, you'll do effective action. The moment you are attached to the action, results of action, your actions become ineffective. I've heard of a doctor, great doctor, who has done thousands of heart surgeries. He has a heart attack one day, and she is brought to the heart operation table, and he fails in surgery because his mother. Now he is attached to the results of the action. My mother has to survive. Whereas for every person, every patient, he is professional. It is a surgery he is doing. Whereas for mother, he is trying to save his mother. The action becomes attached. You are the witness. The moment you become witness, the surrendering of the ego is recognizing your true nature as witness. Then you become free from fear, free from anxiety, because witness is non-judgmental. In that non-judgment, effective action happens. Atma, or the self, is unattached. It can, and for the witness, the problems in the body or problems in the mind or problems in the intellect are not belonging to, because witness, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect. I am not the body, mind, and intellect. Their problems are objective. They are separate from me. For the Sakshi, the witness. When the problems are separate from you, you are able to solve the problem more effectively. See, when you have a difficulty with your child, okay, you find difficult to solve the problem with child, but you are able to give a very effective address to the neighbor's child, mother of neighbor's child, because you are not a part of the problem. So surrender means removing yourself from the problem. Who is removing yourself? Ego. And giving control to the Sakshi, who is the master, who is unbiased witness. And that is called surrender. That's why Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18.66, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. This surrender, this is the concluding shloka. This is the last final concluding advice given by Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 18.66, highest teaching of Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharmans paritijya, drop all actions. Dharma means action here. Okay. Mamekam sharanraja, come to surrender to me, surrender to me. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha, I am free you from all suffering. Here mam means you have to take it as self, Atma. The Atma or the self is God, Krishna. It's the Krishna consciousness. Self is Krishna. Surrender to me. Ego says, I am the doer. Okay? Ego has good and bad, dharma and adharma. All actions, ego says, ego takes the ownership for action. Drop the ownership. Realize the consciousness is the master. Surrender. Become silent. Merge with the consciousness. Then effective action will take place. And Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha means I'll free you from all suffering. There will be no suffering, there will be no guilt, there will be no fear, there will be no anxiety. You will become free from suffering. This is the teaching of Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. That's what Sri Ramanujacharya, the great teacher, he says the prapatti or the surrender is the highest spiritual, the highest of the spiritual process. The surrender is not a path. Surrender is the culmination of spirituality, end of spiritual journey. If you really surrender, then ego is not there. The master, which is consciousness, the Sakshi alone is the master. Then you are free from all suffering. This is what is called surrender. Surrender is not a path. Prapatti is not a path. Prapatti is the final. Surrender is the total and final. Surrender is liberation. You are free from suffering when you really surrender. Any questions?